And I'm not really one to say that like one form of exercise is the end all be all. It's like whatever gravitates to you, like with the exception of yoga. People don't do yoga anymore. Okay, stop it. But anyway, that was a hard one for me, like giving up the yoga.
Tell me about that.
Well, you know, that's what happens when you get into these Catholic circles and you start questioning things, right? And then you start hearing, wait, the Catholic Church says what about like New Age spirituality and stuff? And then you're realizing like all this yoga, which is fantastic for the body, right? It's great, feels great. But for me, it came down to realizing that it's like an appropriation of somebody else's religion and culture, right? It's like the positions and some of the things that you're doing are literally calling upon their gods.
I interviewed a yoga teacher.
I was going to bring that up.
Could you put that in the description for people who want to watch it? Because I had like a 3-hour conversation with this fella who actually, lived in Buddhist temples.
Yeah, he made a really great point. And it was what you just said. It's not the positions. It's when you name the positions that you call on the spirits.
So then what would your advice be, or what did you do to do something similar? I mean, if people are finding a lot of help through yoga, what are they to do? Nothing?
Right. Well, that's...
And then I think people who are ignorant about yoga and how much it helps people will just say, well, why not just go for a walk? You're like, that guy's never been helped by yoga, clearly.
Well, I mean, it's a double-fold thing, because as someone who's a facilitator of exercise, I can literally create anything, right? So this is where, for me, this step away from yoga has been something within the last, like, almost year now, I guess. I don't know the last time I went to a yoga class. And that was hard because I really love yoga with this one particular good friend and teacher of mine in LA. But I said to myself, well, let me start stretching. I know how to stretch. I know flexibility. I know how to do this stuff without necessarily looking at a specific position and saying that, oh, this is like, you know, when we're calling upon the god Shiva or whatever, you know, it's like,
can we stretch without doing that? Sure. Okay.
Right?
Let's do that.
It's like, they don't own the motion and the movement of the body. Right. Yeah. And it's like, I talk about this with modesty enough that maybe this is like another conversation we get into, whereas like we are so, like, especially in Christian culture, we are so taken with whatever is of God's, giving it right over to the devil, right? It's like, oh, it's yoga. That's a position in yoga and you can't do it anymore because it's owned by the Hindus. It's
even
like, no,
if
it's
in
not.
Your cupboard you are reaching for a can of beans and you accidentally, you will be possessed by Satan.
It's like, it's like, no, that's not how it works. You're giving the body over to Satan, and that's not how it works, right? Yeah. So that's theology of the body right there, giving you everything over to God. The wrinkling of he talks about the paper, like Christopher West, you know, taking sin and crumbling it up, right? Yeah. Or crumbles the nature. But anyhow, like, so for me, it's like, okay, so I know how to stretch. I know how to instruct with stretching without necessarily turning it over to yoga in itself. So on my end, I'm trying to create content now that will go into, that will feed into that. Yeah.
I don't know this. What's the difference between Pilates and yoga? What is Pilates? I hear people say this word.
Yeah. So yoga in itself is a, well, I'm going to name it what it is. It's a Hindu practice of stretching, right? Sure. Yeah. But Pilates is a technique which was created by Joseph Pilates, which, I mean, he was more into body conditioning, gymnastics and stuff, and it became very popular with dancers. And it's all about more core strength and conditioning. It has nothing to do with spirituality. It has nothing to do with anybody's religion or co-opting that. It's all about strengthening the body through motion and through core strength more specifically. And I mean, of course, there's like different parts of Pilates that starts on the floor work, then it goes on different apparatus and stuff like that. So it's actually, I like Pilates a lot. If not necessarily for stretching, but definitely for strengthening.
Gee, that would be so helpful if you came up with something like that. For Catholics who are like, all right, well, I've been really helped by this. What's the alternative?
See, now this is the funny part. Are you ready for this? So what did I tell you guys I did in the beginning of all this? I just got on the floor and I just prayed to God, you know, John 15, Lord, live in me. I'm living in you. I need you to just speak to me. Whatever it is you want me to tell your people, just give it to me, right? Catholic channel starts taking off and I'm like, I was talking about this though, God. What are we gonna? But here we are now where I start to realize, you're a funny man. Like, you punk my life like crazy, because now here's the idea. Who out there is creating like cardio rosaries, right? Like for Catholics to do, right? Yeah. So, and then here's the opportunity. I started to think to myself recently, like, okay, how can I facilitate doing more fitness-based things that are exercise-based stretching? That's for people who want to release themselves of yoga and all that other stuff. Oh, here's a great alternative, and let's go ahead and get down and get it.
Thank you so much for watching. Please do me a favor and like. And if you loved subscribe. And if you just cannot get enough, mattfradd.locals.com.